She didn't go to the storage auction to win. She went because it was warm inside. Maria stood in the back of the crowd, her son asleep against her shoulder. She hadn't slept properly in days. The shelter was full. The car she used to live in had been towed. All she had left was $47 in her pocket. The auctioneer's voice echoed through the metal building. Doors rolled up. People shouted bids. Laughter followed. Most units were filled with junk, old couches, broken boxes, dust. Then they opened Unit 317. The crowd went quiet for a second. The manager leaned toward the auctioneer and whispered something. A name, a familiar one. The unit had belonged to a recently deceased millionaire. Suddenly, people started bidding, fast, loud. Aggressive. Maria didn't know why she raised her hand. Maybe it was exhaustion, maybe it was hope. The numbers climbed higher, then stopped. No one wanted to risk going further. Sold, the auctioneer shouted. To her. Maria stared at the rusted metal door of Unit 317. She had just spent almost everything she had left. And she had no idea that inside that storage unit, her life was waiting. Maria never imagined her life would shrink down to a backpack and a tired child. 2 years ago, she had a small apartment. Nothing fancy, just enough space for her and her son, Leo. She worked at a hotel cleaning rooms. The pay was low but steady. Then the hotel changed management. Half the staff was let go. Maria was one of them. She searched for work for months. Every interview ended the same way. We'll call you. No one called. Bills piled up. Rent fell behind. The landlord gave her warnings at first, then a final notice. She packed what she could carry, sold what she could not. Leo thought it was an adventure at first. He didn't understand why they were leaving his toys behind. They stayed in their car for a while. Then the car broke down. After that, it was shelters, long lines, crowded rooms. Nights where she barely slept because she was afraid someone might take their bags. Leo asked once, "When are we going home?" She smiled and said, "Soon." She stopped believing it herself. Every day felt like a battle between pride and survival. She applied for assistance, filled out forms, waited in offices for hours. Some people were kind. Others treated her like she had failed on purpose. She avoided mirrors, not because she didn't want to see herself, because she didn't recognize the woman staring back. Her clothes hung loosely now. Dark circles sat under her eyes. Her hands were rough from odd jobs she picked up when she could find them. Through everything, she protected Leo. He ate first. He slept first. He never heard her cry. That morning, when she saw the flyer for the storage auction taped to a telephone pole, she almost ignored it. But the word public caught her attention. Public meant open doors. Open doors meant possibility. She didn't tell herself she would bid. She just needed somewhere warm to sit for an hour. Somewhere Leo could rest without someone asking them to leave. When she walked into the storage facility, the air smelled like metal and dust. People stood in small groups talking loudly. Most of them looked experienced, confident. Like they had done this many times before. Maria stayed near the back. She told herself not to get attached to anything she saw. She didn't have the money to take risks. But when Unit 317 opened, something shifted. The crowd reacted differently. Whispers moved through the room. Wasn't that unit owned by that investor guy? The one who died last year? Maria didn't know the full story. She only knew that for the first time in months, she felt something close to curiosity. She didn't know why she raised her hand when the bidding slowed. Maybe she was tired of playing it safe. Maybe she was tired of losing. Maybe she just wanted one door in her life to open. And when the auctioneer shouted "sold," and everyone turned to look at her, Maria felt a mix of fear and something else. Hope. But hope can be dangerous when you have almost nothing left to lose. The crowd began to thin out once the auction ended. People dragged their new purchases away with carts and pickup trucks. Laughter echoed through the building. A few glanced at Maria with confusion, as if wondering why someone like her had even bid. Maria stood still in front of Unit 317. Leah held her hand tightly. "Did we win something good?" he asked softly. She forced a small smile. "We'll see." The manager handed her a small key and a clipboard. "You've got 48 hours to clear it out," he said. "Whatever's inside is yours. No refunds. No refunds." The words felt heavy. Maria unlocked the metal door slowly and pulled it up all the way. Dust floated in the air. At first glance, it looked disappointing. Old furniture wrapped in plastic, boxes stacked carelessly, a broken lamp leaning against a wall, a few framed paintings turned backward. Nothing that screamed millionaire. Her heart sank a little. Had she just wasted almost everything? A man who had been bidding earlier walked past and smirked. "Looks like junk to me," he said. "Should have let it go." Maria ignored him. She stepped inside carefully. The space smelled like old wood and forgotten memories. Leo wandered toward a small wooden chest near the back. "Mom, what's this?" he asked. Maria knelt beside him and brushed dust off the lid. It was locked. Her pulse quickened slightly. She looked around again, this time more carefully. The paintings were not cheap prints. They were originals, signed. The frames were heavy, the kind used for something valuable. She picked one up and turned it around. A well-known artist's name was written in the corner. Her hands began to tremble. She didn't know much about art, but she knew enough to understand that original paintings were not worthless. She set it down carefully and opened one of the boxes. Inside were neatly organized files, business folders, documents labeled with dates. Another box contained watches, real ones, heavy. Cold metal against her palm. Her breathing grew shallow. This was not junk. This was hidden. She moved deeper into the unit. Under a covered desk she found a safe. Small, portable, closed. Leo looked up at her. "Are we rich now?" he asked innocently. She swallowed. "I don't know," she whispered. Her mind raced. Why would a millionaire leave valuables in a storage unit? Why weren't these claimed after his death? Something didn't add up. She pulled out her phone and searched the man's name she overheard earlier. An article appeared. "Wealthy investor found dead." Estate dispute ongoing. Estate dispute. Maria stared at the screen. If there was a dispute, maybe no one knew about this unit, or maybe someone did. Her chest tightened. If these items were valuable, someone might come looking. She suddenly felt exposed standing inside the open unit. The metal building no longer felt safe. She stepped outside and pulled the door halfway down, locking it. Leo squeezed her hand again. "What do we do now?" Maria looked back at Unit 317. $47 had brought her here. But what she had just seen felt like something far bigger than luck, and she had no idea who else might realize it. Maria didn't sleep that night. She found a quiet corner near the storage facility parking lot and sat inside an old waiting area until closing time. Leo rested against her shoulder again, unaware of the storm in her mind. The paintings, the watches, the locked safe. It didn't make sense. If the millionaire's estate was in dispute, how had this unit been forgotten? And if it wasn't forgotten, why was it auctioned publicly? Her thoughts kept circling back to the article she read. Estate dispute ongoing. That meant lawyers, family members, arguments over money. And here she was, a homeless mother, suddenly holding something that might belong in the middle of all that. When the facility reopened the next morning, she returned immediately. This time she came prepared. She borrowed a small flashlight from the front desk, saying she needed better light inside the unit. The manager didn't question her. Inside Unit 317, she closed the metal door halfway again, blocking outside eyes. She turned the flashlight on and began examining everything more closely. The paintings were wrapped carefully in protective paper, not tossed in carelessly. Someone had stored them with intention. The watches were high-end brands. She recognized one from a jewelry store display she once walked past but could never afford to enter. She opened another box. Inside were photo albums, old ones. She hesitated, then flipped one open. The pictures showed a man in his late 50s, well-dressed, standing in front of large houses, at charity events, with business partners. But as the pages turned, the images changed. The same man sitting alone at a dining table. The same man standing beside a small boy in only a few photos. The boy disappeared after a few pages. Her heart tightened. She set the album aside and turned her attention to the safe. It was heavy but small enough to carry. No visible keyhole, digital keypad. Her pulse quickened. She tried a simple code. Nothing. She tried the man's birth year from the article. Still nothing. Leo sat quietly nearby, drawing shapes in the dust with his finger. "Mom," he said softly. "Was he lonely?" She looked up. Who? The man who had this stuff? Maria didn't know why the question hit her so hard. "Maybe," she replied. She studied the photo album again. The boy in the early pictures looked about 5 or 6. Then he vanished from the timeline. Why? She flipped to the last page. A loose paper slipped out. It was a receipt. Storage unit rental renewal. Paid in cash. Dated only 3 months before the millionaire's death. That meant he knew exactly what was inside, and he chose to keep it separate. Maria's breathing slowed as realization began to form. This unit wasn't abandoned. It was protected, hidden. She looked at the safe again. If the paintings and watches were outside, what could be inside? Her hands trembled slightly. Outside, she heard footsteps echo in the hallway of the storage building. Voices. One of them sounded familiar. The man who had smirked at her yesterday. Her stomach tightened. Maybe she wasn't the only one thinking about Unit 317. And maybe whatever was inside that safe was worth someone coming back for. Maria froze when she heard the footsteps stop near her unit. The metal walls of the storage building carried sound easily. She could hear 2 men talking in low voices. "That's the one of them said. Her heart began to pound. She quickly turned off the flashlight and pulled the metal door down quietly, leaving only a small gap so she could see outside. Through the narrow opening, she recognized the man who had mocked her the day before. He stood with another man in a dark jacket, both staring at the unit number. "She had no idea what she bought," the second man muttered. Maria's stomach dropped. They knew, or at least they suspected. Leo looked at her with wide eyes. "Mom," he whispered. She placed a finger over her lips. Outside, the first man laughed softly. "If there's something valuable in there, she won't know how to handle it," he said. "We just need to wait." Wait for what? Maria's thoughts raced. Were they planning to offer her money, or scare her into selling, or worse? The men eventually walked away, but the damage was done. This wasn't just about luck anymore. This was about strategy. Maria pulled the door back up and locked it firmly. She couldn't leave the unit unattended now. Not with people circling. Her eyes moved around the space again. If the safe held something important, she needed to know before anyone else did. She searched the desk drawers stacked near the back of the unit. Old pens, receipts, a small envelope. Inside the envelope was a folded note. Her hands trembled as she opened it. "If you are reading this, it means you own this unit." Her breath caught. The handwriting was neat, steady. "I kept these things separate for a reason. Not everything I owned was meant for the courtroom." Maria felt her pulse quicken. There are people who will look for what's inside the safe. Some will pretend to help you, some will try to scare you. Her throat went dry. "I made mistakes in my life. I trusted the wrong people. The safe contains what I could not protect while I was alive." She stopped reading for a moment. The air inside the unit felt different now. He knew. The millionaire knew someone might find this. The letter continued. "The code is the year my son disappeared." Maria's eyes widened. The photo album. The boy. She grabbed the album quickly and flipped back to the earliest pictures. the small boy smiling beside the wealthy man. She searched for dates scribbled under the photos. There. Summer 2008. Her heart pounded harder. She rushed back to the safe and entered 2008. The keypad beeped once, then clicked. The safe unlocked. Maria slowly opened the door. Inside were stacks of documents, a thick envelope sealed in red wax, and something wrapped in cloth. She lifted the envelope first. Her name was not on it. Instead, it read, "To the one who needs this most." Maria's hands began to shake. Outside the unit, she heard footsteps again. Closer this time, and she realized that whatever was inside that envelope was the reason people were watching her. Maria's hands trembled as she broke the red wax seal. Leo sat quietly beside her, watching her face more than the envelope. Inside was a thick stack of papers and a smaller folded letter on top. She opened the letter first. "If you found this, then you are probably not the person my family expected to inherit anything from me." Her breath caught. "I placed this storage unit in my own name and paid for it in cash. It was never included in my official estate." Maria swallowed hard. "That was intentional." Her eyes moved faster now. "My business partners believed they owned a large share of my investments. They were wrong. I discovered fraud too late." Fraud. The word echoed in her mind. "I withdrew a portion of my assets before they could freeze my accounts." The money was converted into physical items and bearer bonds. Bearer bonds. She had heard the term before but never thought she would see it in real life. Maria quickly looked inside the safe again. The stack of documents beneath the letter were certificates, financial instruments, dated and signed. Her pulse began to race. The letter continued. "These bonds are legal, transferable. Whoever legally purchases this unit becomes their holder." She felt the room tilt slightly. She had legally purchased the unit. She flipped through one of the bond certificates. The numbers made her breath stop. Thousands, tens of thousands, several of them. Her hands shook so hard she had to place the papers on the floor. Leo looked at her. "Mom, what is it?" She couldn't answer right away. The letter wasn't finished. "I do not know who will find this. But if you are desperate enough to risk your last dollars on a forgotten unit, then perhaps you understand what it means to lose everything." Her eyes filled with tears. "I could not protect my son. I could not fix my mistakes, but maybe I can help someone else start over." Maria pressed her hand to her mouth. "This is not charity, it is choice. You own this because you chose it." Her chest tightened painfully. Outside, the footsteps returned. Voices, the same two men. "Let's talk to her," one said. Maria folded the letter quickly and placed it back in the envelope. Her mind raced. If those men knew about the bonds, they would not walk away quietly. She gathered the certificates carefully and slid them back into the safe. Her breathing steadied. She had come to the auction with less than $50. Now she was sitting in front of financial instruments worth more than she had ever imagined. But wealth attracts attention, and the men outside were no longer pretending to be casual. They stopped right in front of Unit 317. The metal door rattled slightly as someone tested it. Maria locked eyes with Leo. Her life had just changed. But whether it would change for better or worse depended on what she did next. The metal door rattled again. "Hey," a voice called from outside. "We just want to talk." Maria didn't answer. Her heart pounded, but her mind felt strangely clear. She had been afraid for so long. Afraid of losing her job. Afraid of losing her apartment. Afraid of not being enough for her son. But this was different. This wasn't fear of failure. This was fear of losing something she had just gained. She stood up slowly and locked the safe again, making sure it was secure. Then she picked up her phone. The letter had mentioned fraud, estate disputes, business partners who believed they owned something they did not. That meant one thing: lawyers. She searched quickly for the law firm mentioned in the news article about the millionaire's death. The same firm handling the estate dispute. Her hands shook as she dialed. The door rattled harder. "Open up," one of the men said, impatience creeping into his voice. Maria stepped toward the door but did not unlock it. "I've already contacted legal counsel," she called out clearly. "Everything inside this unit is documented." Silence fell outside. Then one of the men muttered something under his breath. The phone connected. "Good afternoon, Carter and Mills Law Offices." Maria swallowed. "My name is Maria Lopez," she said. "I legally purchased Storage Unit 317, formerly owned by Mr. Adrian Hale." There was a pause on the other end. "Yes," the receptionist said carefully. "I believe the unit contains assets not listed in his estate." Another pause. "I would like to arrange an immediate consultation." Outside, the footsteps shifted. The men were still there, waiting. Maria kept her voice steady. "I have documentation." The receptionist's tone changed slightly. "One moment, please." Leo squeezed her hand tightly. "Are we in trouble?" he whispered. Maria looked at him. "No," she said softly. "Not this time." After a brief hold, a deeper voice came on the line. "This is Attorney Mills." Maria took a deep breath. "I think I found what Mr. Hale was trying to protect," she said. Another silence. "Then stay where you are. Do not release anything. We're sending someone." She ended the call and turned back toward the door. The men knocked again. "We can make you an offer," one said quickly. "Cash, right now." Maria didn't respond. She had lived long enough with quick cash that disappeared fast. This was different. Hours later, a black sedan pulled into the storage facility. Two suited individuals stepped out. The men outside Unit 317 left almost immediately. Maria watched through the small crack as the lawyers approached. When she finally opened the door, she was no longer the woman who had walked in desperate for warmth. She was the legal owner of something powerful. Attorney Mills examined the documents carefully. "These bonds are valid," he said quietly. "Very valid." Maria's knees felt weak. Leo smiled at her. "You won, Mom," he whispered. She looked down at him, tears in her eyes. No, she hadn't just won money. She had won a second chance, a safe apartment, a school without fear, food without counting every dollar. That night, as the sun set behind the metal building, Maria closed the storage unit for the last time. She had walked in with nothing and walked out with a future.